Call to order the June 23rd meeting of the Shelby Township Planning Commission. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dallo, absent. Ms. DeSico? Ms. Casali?
Here.
Mr. Bernardi?
Yes.
Mr. Rapone?
Here.
Here.
Mr. Vire?
Here.
Chairman Moffett, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Next is approval of the agenda. If there are no additions or subtractions, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by DeSico,
Support.
support by Casali. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item is approval of the minutes from the June 9th regular meeting. If there are no corrections to the minutes, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Moved by Wismowski, support by DeSico. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, this evening we have three site plans. The first one is a public hearing regarding a plan unit development. Madam Secretary, would you read the notice as published?
Yes. Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of the following planned unit development. Applicant, Stephen Orr, Ladd's Real Estate and Development, 5877 Livernois, Suite 103, Troy, Michigan, 48098. Proposed use, single-family site condominiums, Barclay Lake Village, number 2. Location, east side of DeQuinder Road between Hamlin and Auburn Roads. Sidwell number 23-07-30-301-035 and 23-07-30-301-036. Site plan number 14-14, PUD number 3. Legal description is as follows. Planning Commission will meet on Monday, June 23rd, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the planned unit development application. The application for planned unit development and the site plan may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirement acts of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffett, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. Publication date was June 4th, 2014 in the CNG newspaper. 83 property owners and 2 applicants were notified on June 6, 2014. There were also 27 City of Rochester Hills residents notified on June 6, 2014.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Denowith, did the publication meet all the legal requirements?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Could you explain the uses under the present zoning and if this request is appropriate to the district, this district?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is a planned unit development, a PUD. The current zoning is single-family residential, which is set forth in the Shelby Township ordinances, beginning at Section 9.00 and continuing on through Article 9. PUDs are, the section of PUDs begins at Section 13.37, and pursuant to Section 13.37A, the intent and purpose is to establish planned unit development provisions which permit flexibility in the regulation of land development. This is an appropriate use and an appropriate application for this zoning district.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Moore, did we receive any correspondence regarding this request?
Yes, we did, Mr. Chairman. We received just one piece of correspondence from a Robert Peters on 2117 Barclay, Shelby Township, Michigan. His concern is traffic. That's his major concern, and that was just delivered to us tonight prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, the format for the public hearing will be as follows. The petitioner or the representative will give a presentation stating the reasons for the request. Commissioners may then ask questions of the petitioners. I'll then open the floor up to the public for any questions or comments. And then finally, the petitioner will be allowed to make any concluding remarks. At this point, is the petitioner here? If you're going to travel, I've got a portable.
You're prepared for me tonight, aren't you? Well, I'll see if I can do it from the podium. If I can't, I'll come get the portable. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Pete Snyder from Urban Land Consultants, representing the petitioner, Garrett and Associates, or Lads Development. The site in question, again, as was noted in the publication, is on the east side of DeQuinder, just north of Barkley Lake Drive. In the lower of the two boards, the orange is the 5.6 acres in question. It's currently in two different parcels, which need to be combined. That was one of the departmental comments. It is an expansion or a phase 2 of the original Barkley Lake development, which was developed in the early 1990s, which showed 13 lots on that parcel. But that section of Barkley Lake was not developed at the time. And this submittal is with the intent of developing that as close to the original Barkley Lake standards as possible. The lots are the same size or a bit larger than the Barkley Lake lots. The homes are a bit larger and a bit nicer than the Barkley Lake homes. With that, it's a pretty straightforward submittal. It's really what you saw back in the early 90s as Barkley Lake, brought up to as close to modern standards as we can. The reason we chose to develop it as a PUD rather than as a straightforward site plan is that the original Barkley Lake submission used an open space concept to have a 10% reduction in the lot width in exchange for the lake area and other open space. Since that provision has been, well, that provision is still there, but since the lot sizes became larger in the interim, these lots actually, they don't meet the zoning standards for the enlarged lots, even though they are exactly what was planned for back in the mid-90s. So with that, I'm certainly available for any questions. And again, I've received the departmental comments, and I'm prepared to respond to any of those if any of those are particularly important to the commission.
Okay. To the board, any questions for the petitioner? Okay, hearing none. Would you have a seat? This is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this special land use request. All remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. We are a recommending body, and the Township Board will evaluate our recommendation, which is the legislative body. The Township Board will make the final decision on this request. At this point, is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on this? Come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Steve Simpson. I am the Vice President of Elmer Leasing Company. We operate we own some property at 48,000 Hickson Road. I am also the president, owner, co-owner of Paragon Ready Mix Company. We operate a Ready Mix Concrete Company at 48,000 Hickson. That's within about 1,500 feet of where these homes are proposed. And we certainly don't have any objections to that. We don't have any objections to the continued development and growth of the lake there. We would like to comment that we do have a ready-mix concrete company there. It's been operating there for about 40 or 50 years, and we've managed to do that in harmony with the local residents. But we always like to go on record is that we've been there a long time, and that even though we don't object to having 13 more neighbors, someday they may all object to having us. So we just like to point out, maybe, we were there first, and maybe you could recall that. I am not a traffic engineer. I have operated a ready-mix concrete company there in one fashion or another for the last 20 years, and there is no traffic congestion in the area. Thank you.
Can you please sign in, sir? Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else wish to comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, Mr. Wynn, your comments?
Mr. Comments, I have several comments. As Mr. Snyder indicated, we shared them with him earlier. Most of these are more technical comments that are easily addressed. One deals with the adjoining side entrance garages on units 8 and 9, and if there's a way to kind of resolve that so that if they're side entry garages, they're not side by side. Try to do that ahead of time. Crichton Lane exceeds the cul-de-sac length requirement of 600 feet. They're at 1150. The major concern is for access for fire vehicles, and there was no objection from the fire department from that. We do have situations where cul-de-sacs are longer in this community, and frankly, there's no other way to get to the site. It would almost be artificial to shorten it up. That's a standard that the board would have to adjust and waive as part of their review of the PUD. Macomb County has indicated a desire that Crichton Road be dedicated as a public road. I know the applicant would prefer to keep it private. I discussed this with our engineer, and we don't have any objections to maintaining it as private as long as it's built to the county standard, 60-foot right-of-way and the other standard improvements. The landscaping note should include a requirement for 2 replacement trees per lot. There wasn't a tree survey done earlier, but we did issue a permit to do some brushing on the site. I really don't see how providing a tree survey would affect the design of the site. I've been out on the site many times, and it's mostly just brush on the site. Nor do I think there's any real need for the traffic study, in as much as there's only 13 lots here and there's only one way out. There's a note on the plan that the 25-foot setback from the back of the curb, it's actually not from the back of the curb. It's properly noted in the detail that Mr. Snyder's provided, but that note should be removed. We'll need some of these are from the building department. We'll need a site bond as part of site plan review, an easement for the sidewalk along DeQuinder Road along the rear lot line of Unit 12. That way, when we want to establish a sidewalk on there, we don't have to acquire the right-of-way. Eliminate the gravel driveway along DeQuinder Road on Unit 12, and it will be necessary to restore the sidewalks, or that temporary turnaround will be eliminated. There's no sidewalks there now, so those will have to be restored. And this is something we raised earlier, I think, with the initial review. There's an area east of Unit 9 that backs up to the lake. Maybe, Pete, if you could point that out. It's kind of a no man's land. It almost looks like it's a part of
10, yeah.
I'm sorry, 10. It looks like it's a part of somebody's site. We just have to know who's going to maintain that, because that has been a problem in the past.
Is that part of Site 10?
It's actually open space, part of Lot 9, but I guess the intent,
Okay.
I'm not sure the intent would be to, I'm sorry, it is?
It looked like it was part of-
Apologize, it's Lot 10, not Lot 9.
10 comes down.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I'm just showing everybody. I look at this stuff before I walk in the room.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
it would be, I mean, it's Lake Shore, it's Phragmites, it's going to be part of the open space around the lake. I'm not sure in as much as it will need a bunch of maintenance. Probably it would fall to the association rather than to the single owner of Lot 10, but again, I think we can arrange it however works best in terms of maintenance. I don't think there's strong feelings about how to assign maintenance for that.
Chairman, I don't think we have any strong objections one or another, as long as somebody's assigned maintenance, that we can address it to if there's a violation of some sort. That's probably going to be in the master deed, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably should be addressed, though, because the neighbors to the north,
It should be.
better to have it spelled out than to leave it negotiation.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rexmansky.
can't the township just research who pays taxes on that piece of land?
Well, Mr. Chairman, they own it. The applicant owns it. The developer owns it. The question is, who's going to own it when he's done? Is it going to be one unit, or is it going to be all the units? That's the question. So, let me finish my comments, too. The comments from the engineer are included. They will need some additional calculations to show that the lake is properly sized to include these additional lots, and I believe that was done originally,
Yeah.
but that will need to be done again. So
Yeah,
that's
it was sized to include it, but it's something we just need to point out and show where to FossilCon so they can understand the calculation.
the last comment was dealing with the lot sizes, and as Pete correctly noted, the lot size changed, so that the PUD was the only way to address this. But interestingly enough, the new lots, the new requirements, 12,000 square feet, and some of them are less and some of them are more, but they actually average just slightly more than 12,000 square feet. So I think they've met the spirit of the ordinance, and the lots are bigger than the ones in the original Barclay Lake. So there's been, it's a nice development, and this development just enhances it a little more. So I think it's a good project, and I have no other comments, Mr. Chairman. These are easily correctable. They're not design-related comments.
Great, thank you. Any concluding remarks?
No.
Okay. I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Our recommendation on this request must be based on the following standards: compatibility with adjacent land uses, consistent with and promote the intent and purpose of the special land use, compatibility with the natural environment, you can sit down if you'd like, consistent with the capacities of public services and facilities affected by the proposed use, protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and finally, the adequacy of public access to this site. We may recommend approval, disapprove this request, or table to evaluate it further. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Moore.
I move to recommend approval to the Township Board for Planned Unit Development Application 14-14, PUD number 3 for Barclay Lake Condominiums Phase 2 to permit the development of the site for 13 detached single-family homes based on the following findings. Number 1, this phase is a continuation of a project that started in the 1990s. Number 2, the proposed new single-family home sites are larger than those in the first phase. Number 3, the existing development site is an infill parcel that requires some modification of existing zoning standards to develop the single-family purposes. Number 4, the use of this site for single-family homes is consistent with surrounding development patterns. Number 5, a revised site plan addressing all department comments must be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Department for final approval. And number 6, we should add to address lot number 10, the extenuation of that parcel, is that belonging to the common areas within the condominium association? Can that be addressed in the master deed and bylaws?
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner DeCito? Yes. Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Rexwanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Pone?
Yes.
Commissioner Vire?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Good luck. Okay, next item we have is a site plan number 14-15, Donald Shapansky with Accessible Environments LLC regarding a Class A non-conforming use. Is the petitioner here? And if you could just, get your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Shapansky of Accessible Environments. Office address 318 John R. Road, number 13, Troy, Michigan 48083. I'm here this evening representing the Kalia family who reside on the north side of Auburn Road in a single-family ranch-style residence. Due to life-altering catastrophic injuries Mrs. Kalia received in an auto-related accident, her medical and therapeutic team are recommending fairly substantial home modifications to this residence, which will allow her to successfully, safely reside in the home. I come to the table taking those recommendations and coming with architectural solutions. The existing home is approximately 175 feet from the Auburn right-of-way. Understanding that in this particular zoning classification, the home currently sits in a non-conforming use. Due to the family wishing to remain in the residence, as well as the substantial planned addition renovations, we're asking for approval of its non-conforming use.
Okay. Mr. Wynn, your thoughts, comments?
Yes, thank you. I've had extensive conversations with Mr. Shapansky about this in the past. This is a 6-acre site on the north side of Auburn Road while it's kind of going in a northwest direction. The site is 1,500 feet deep, plus or minus, and the front 250 feet or so is zone C2, and that's where the home is located. The balance of the site is vacant. So as Mr. Shapansky properly noted, this house is non-conforming, which means that you can't expand it, nor could you rebuild it if it was destroyed by a fire. The theory behind non-conforming uses is you want them to go away. You don't want to have a gas station in a residential district. Conversely, you prefer not to have single-family homes in commercial districts. The practical the practicality of that is that the nonconforming uses rarely grow feet and walk away. They tend to exist for extended periods of time, and if we don't allow for some provisions for their expansion or growth, that you might have situations where people don't want to invest in them anymore. And we've had a number of these come before us. Usually when people want to obtain mortgage financing and the bank won't do it unless we approve it, because if the house burned down, they couldn't rebuild it. I think it's impractical to allow for this. So when we developed the zoning ordinance about 17 years ago, the state said you could have different classes of nonconformity. So we included it in the ordinance. There's a public notice requirement for adjoining property owners. There's also an opportunity for the Planning Commission to review this and make a public record of it. I think this is probably one of the it's probably the most comprehensive application we've received. Mr. Szczepanski did a very professional job with the diagram, and I think there is really no practical reason not to allow for this to occur. The only comment I received from the neighbors is a doctor's office to the north of this, and that doctor called last week, and she had no objection whatsoever. So I've offered a motion supporting this, and it's the final decisions made here at the Planning Commission level.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Nguyen.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the commissioners to the petitioner? Hearing none, thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Moore.
I move to approve Class non-conforming use application for Donald Szczepanski based on the following findings. Number one, the expansion of the existing single-family home on the site will not negatively impact any abutting land uses. Number two, the Class A designation would allow the applicant to construct a 2,413 square feet addition rebuilt this site if destroyed by a fire or another natural disaster. Number three, there are no plans to develop the C2 zoned portion of the site for commercial purposes at this time.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Pone. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Pone.
Yes.
Commissioner Vire.
Yes.
Commissioner Waxmansky.
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi.
Yes.
Commissioner Casale.
Yes.
And Commissioner DeSico.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Good luck. Okay, next item. Elmer Leasing Company. Steven Simpson, Paragon Ready Mix. Site plan number 14-16. Now, you only get to charge mileage for one of the clients, so flip a coin.
You're right, we'll figure that out, I'm sure.
At least you know how far to go. You could have walked here.
That's right. Again, Pete Snyder from Urban Land Consultants, representing the petitioner, Steven Simpson, of course, who's in the audience and addressed you earlier, along with the architect, Mike Ganu. The site plan is a fairly straightforward one. Again, Paragon Ready Mix, a.k.a. Nagy Ready Mix, has been around a very long time. They have an existing maintenance building where they do maintenance on their vehicles. It's probably been around since the very beginning of the site and looks its age and feels its age. It's time for a better building and a new building. So we've submitted the site plan in conjunction with the architect working designed for a new maintenance building. It's about 11,000 square feet, sits pretty much on the same footprint where the existing maintenance building is. It's a little larger. Again, the increase in size is not really an increase in capacity. It's not an expansion of what they're doing out there. It's just real bays to work in and real lunchroom and, a nicer place to do the maintenance on the vehicle rather than any real large increase in capacity or what they're trying to do at the site. So with that, I'm certainly available with any questions you may have on the site plan.
Great, thank you. Mr. Nguyen, your thoughts?
Yeah, just a few minor thoughts, and just one kind of comment to preface that is this site has been there, as Mr. Simpson said, for many years. And when we get a site plan in for an older site like this, we don't go back and look at all of the site features to see if they're conforming. It would not be practical, and it might act as a deterrent to even bringing these sites up to code. So we're looking at the portions of the site that they're working in and trying to the extent reasonable and practical, bring the site up to some current standards. And I think this is a good example of how it should be done. The only comment we have is that we have a different design spec for the light fixtures, and while there's no residential real close to this site to the south, there may be when that PUD develops, so we want the down-facing full cutoff fixture. There's a requirement from the fire department that the building has to be within 200 feet of a fire hydrant. There is no sanitary sewer at this site, and indicated that the building department has indicated Macomb County Health Department approval will be required, and there will be a need for some accessible parking to meet the building code, and it will likely require a fire suppression system. That would be dealt with more fully at the building review level. Otherwise, Mr. Chairman, it's a very clean site plan, a good project, and there's a motion offered in support.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the petitioner from the commission? Seeing none, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Casale.
I'd like to make a motion to approve site plan number 14-16, proposing the development of a new building on the Paragon Ready Mix, subject to the submission of a revised plan addressing all of the department comments.
Your support?
Support.
Okay. Moved by Casale, support by Bernardi. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Wexmansky?
Yes.
Commissioner Pone?
Yes.
Commissioner Vire?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Good luck, gentlemen. And then, okay, next item is Planning Director's report.
The only thing I want to report is we're having that extra meeting next Monday. So Kathy and I thought it would be a good idea to get the packages ready for you so you don't have to come back. The only thing missing from the packages would be our engineers' comments. You know, they'll come in this week because we normally would do it on Thursday. We get those in, I'll scan them and send them to everybody ahead of time. So your packages are complete.
Thank you.
Thank you. No public hearings next week. You're just straight site plans.
Okay, very good. Mr. Vire, you got one more motion for me?
Adjourn.
Is there support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.